Today on The Grid, our topic is why photographers need to protect their work with our special guests, the copyright gurus Jack Resnicki and Ed Greenberg. My co-host is a real man. He's a can of ham. He drives a Dodge Ram. He has a Florida tan. He eats bran. He's from Curve Like a Stan. He's the real rocket man. Eric Kuhn is here. We've got some cool giveaways, including something we've never given away before. And it all starts in just 30 seconds.
The Grid is brought to you by Platypod, the tripod alternative that is changing the world. Everybody has a Platypod. You should too. Go to platypod.com.
Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the show where we started, the latest we've ever done in 9 years. I don't think starting a half hour late is really that bad. I think it's really pretty much... It's bad. Yeah. It's very, very, very bad. We blame Facebook, but we blame all of society's problems on Facebook, not just the grid streaming.
Yes.
All of society's problems. There he is. There's a rocket man.
Yeah.
But you've completely blown my biological clock now.
Yes.
You're probably wondering where that voice is coming from.
From.
All right. We've got two of the leading experts on protecting your work and copyright and model releases and all that stuff. They've actually even written a book about it, which I have in my office, by the way, and refer to it never, because I've been very lucky not to have. Nobody wants to steal my crap. Nobody wants to steal it. Nobody cares. They're like, it's Scott stuff. I don't want that garbage.
Sounds like a married guy.
But we have Ed Greenberg, who is a attorney based in New York City, but sometimes also based in Florida. But he's on the move. He has to stay on the move. So anyway, but he has spent his career protecting photographers and artists of all kinds. Jack Resnicki is an advocate for copyright and a leading expert on the topic. Also a professional photographer by trade, but he has spent a ton of his career helping other photographers protect their work. So they are our guests today, and we're going to be talking about model releases, copyright, and why, the big topic of why do you need to protect your work? Because a lot of people will go, I don't know, I'm not going to really sell anything. I don't know if I'm going to do anything. And so we do want to address those. Before we get to all that, we just have a couple of real quick housekeeping things. First off, not only am I going to announce a brand new book, but I believe it is hitting like bookstores now. I think the ebook is already there. We have printed copies. And it's a book that I've never done, and it's going to sound like I've done it. You're going to go, you've done that book, but I haven't. And here it is. It is the Lightroom 7-point system. Ooh. So the one that I've done, and it was like 13 years ago, was the Photoshop 7-point system. And the idea behind the book is this. It's a 21-day course. Each day you spend, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you don't spend very long, doing a lesson that teaches you basically how to become an absolute shark in Lightroom. So every day I give you an image, and you download an image, and then you actually do the tutorial all the way through. And what it is you're going to do basically these 7 things. It is a system. Yes. And you keep doing it and doing it. Yeah, I think it is delivers. It says delivery July 24th, fastest delivery July 18th. So it's you can get the Kindle version now. Paperback is going to be here any day. We're going to launch it officially next Thursday. I'm doing a book chat all about it. I'll be doing some Lightroom tutorials and stuff and kind of going through it next Thursday night. So next Thursday, what time do we do it? Do you know?
Oh, I don't know.
It's next Thursday.
So we'll figure it out.
It's not this Thursday. Yeah. It's not tomorrow. It's a week from tomorrow, the 22nd. I think we usually do it like 7 o'clock. It's not very late.
And I think what's cool about that, and that system you came up with it's that proven things that you do to every photo, right? So, and we all have that as photographers, these things that we do to every photo, especially because we shoot in RAW and we need to process them. And that's where the 7-point system takes you through all the things that you're just going to kind of become muscle memory, that I'm going to do these things over and over.
That's right.
Make my image is great.
And that's what happens. And you know what happens when you're doing 21 chapters and you're only doing like 5 or 10 minutes a day.
Yes.
But the key is repetition. It really is. And by like day 10, you're going to go, wait a minute, I know what to do next. I know what's coming.
Yes.
That's it. That's what we want you to do. We want you to get to that point where you're like, oh my gosh, I know what to do next. I know where to start. I know what to do next, and I know where to finish. So that's what this is about. We got our printed copies just arrived, but we're going to give away one today on the show. So that's one of our giveaways. It's something we've never given away before. So that's coming up. We're also giving away a copy of my other book, which is now old and raggy. Don't even buy it. It's stupid. No, it's an awesome book.
It's awesome. I love that book.
This book has done phenomenally well. Way better. Like, I tried to convince my publisher to do this book, and they were like, I don't know how iPhone books do. This thing has exploded. So it's called the iPhone Photography Book, and it's for iPhone photographers or somebody that you know. We're also giving away a Platypod Ultra. Lots of stuff to give away, but we're gonna roll on with our show.
And before we get started, did have Christina chime in and say that 7 p.m. is the book channel.
7 p.m. Yeah, I thought that's about right. Thank you, Christina. So about 7 p.m. next Thursday, and you'll keep an eye. If you see my social stuff, I'll have lots of stuff leading you to it. The book chats they're kind of fun. We do giveaways. We have all kinds of giveaways that we do, and we just talk about the book, like, so what is this book really about? And I actually show you. I actually do things directly from the book. And so there's tips and there's tricks and there's fun and there's giveaways and there's love and there's wine. And it's just great. All right.
Yeah. Speaking of, chats, we have a great topic today.
Do we?
It's one of those things that, kind of confuses photographers a lot, with this copyright model release. And I think this is one of those episodes where you will definitely get your money's worth out of this episode.
Yes,
I know
you will.
It's free, but you're going to definitely get your money's worth out of this one.
Right. Now, I do want to say this. Jack and Ed are here at our studios in Florida because they are updating all of their copyright classes. Now, they've been teaching with us for many years, and they are beloved by the Kelby One community. However, what we don't beloved is when the government changes the rules. So it was really necessary for them to come and bring us up to date on the changes, and there have been many. It's more expensive, of course. It used to be really a deal. Now it's still worth doing, of course, but it's not the deal, the screaming deal it used to be. But that's just, everything's more expensive now.
Yeah, that was a shame. They went from, I could register 14,000 images for the same price, and now it's 750. So I have to actually go in and edit my stuff before I send it in.
Yes, but let's correct, because we go through this each and every time. The fee is $55 for 2, 10, 500, or 750. Not $55 per picture.
I don't know why, but we always get that question.
Always get that question.
They're saying, I can't afford that, $55 a picture? Oh my God. No.
Because it seems like it would be $55 a picture.
But it's not.
No, it's not.
And the more that we say it's not, the more people believe it. So again, it's like a married man kind of thing. The more you say it, the more
less people
ignore
hear. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What?
All right, so guys, I want to just throw this question out there to get us rolling, is why should we protect our images? Like, why should we even worry about this? Is the theft of photography really that big a deal today? I know what the answer is, but I want to hear it from you guys.
Well, for me, it's a living. Me and lots of other attorneys make a living on it. And
I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. It's never happened to me before.
Right.
Right?
We hear that all the time because people say it all the time. They say, oh, nobody will steal this. And the funny thing is, Ed points this out, the images that get ripped off the most aren't the big fancy images. It's not the ones like I'm well known for or anything else that I did in advertising. It's the little generic, simple pictures that somebody needs for something or they pick it up. And it's usually, the intern. It's usually, the intern picked it up off the internet. We didn't know anything about it.
One of the most frequently infringed photos that we've dealt with is a photo of a wave. And the creator of the photo said if I was teaching high school photography, and a student came in with this picture, I'd give him a B on it. That photo of a simple wave made about $3-4 million. Wound up on every Aquafina vending machine throughout the world, all their commercials. Wow. It's a wave, it's generic. Photographs of another one that we've had infringed a lot of times is a black couple dressed to the nines getting out of a limo and the doorman opening the door. And that photo, perfectly nice photo, was stolen for upscale catering halls, upscale political fundraisers, limousine services, high-end hotels. The more generic it is, the more likely it's going to be stolen because it's generic. It can be used for lots of stuff.
Well, I had one image that was, again, a nothing picture. It was a picture of a sign that I took in a very popular market. I can't say anything more because I handed it over to Ed when I saw it, and Ed collected a five-figure check for me on it. And when I look at this picture, it's like, it's a type of picture I barely keep, you know. It was a nothing picture. It was just something, oh, look at this is nice, took a picture. One that anybody would take with anything, with even the cell phone. And the fact that the way it was used in a book meant that it was money in my pocket.
Right, and one of the things we talked about yesterday at length is time and events transforms the value of a photograph. So in the lesson yesterday, we showed a photo of a young girl at the age of 13 attending someone's wedding, and that girl became Britney Spears.
She always was Britney Spears.
But she became Britney Spears.
She became Britney Spears.
Yes, or Britney. Or
yeah, and it's just
Britney.
a nothing picture.
It was a nothing picture, but the photographer was smart enough to have read our books, copyrighted it, and it was infringed, which led to a recovery. So when you think that you have a photo that no one's going to steal, that no one would ever use that, those are the photos that people do steal. If you have a photograph with a famous person, like Bo Jackson, they're not likely to steal it because they don't want to deal with Bo Jackson or LeBron James or Tom Hanks.
We actually discuss a lot about a very famous picture of Bo Jackson that was taken by Richard Noble for one of the very first Nike ads, where he had the football equipment and the baseball bat with him, and it was the first Just Do It ad that went out. We talk a lot because Bo Jackson used the picture, and Bo Jackson didn't have the rights to use the picture, even though he was the subject of the picture.
Well, I'm going to correct Jack. Bo Jackson, yes. Bo Jackson could use the picture. The photographer can't use the picture without Bo Jackson's consent, and now Bo Jackson could not use that photo without the photographer's consent. So we get into the idea where the owner of the photo and the subject of the photo, their rights may be exactly parallel and exactly the same or very different. And just coincidentally, and we wish it happened yesterday, but it happened, or it hit the papers today. Do we have the slide of the Borat case?
Yeah, this really got Ed. Really got Ed excited today. This is make lawyers go off the edge.
This is my thrill for the day. So we talk extensively about always get a model release, no exceptions, a written, signed model release, no matter what. Photographers frequently make that mistake, or they make the mistake of not getting them. But to make everybody out there feel a little better, even the big shot executives at ad agencies and large companies can be just as dumb as all of us can be. This is part of a complaint, federal court complaint, filed, I believe, yesterday by Sacha Baron Cohen as the character Borat. This was a billboard in Massachusetts with his familiar, what's it, Be Nice or It's Nice?
Very nice.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Oh, that was pretty good.
A winner in the third row.
Yeah. Every once in a while.
This is advertising a cannabis product. He never gave consent for this ad. No one asked him for consent. And as he repeatedly says in his interviews, and there's some merit to what he says, he doesn't do commercials. He would not have done this for any amount of money. Now, coincidentally, in this image, he's the photographer. He owns the copyright because he owns the copyright of the film.
Yeah, and the character.
So he's got the character. He's got the unauthorized use of a person to falsely endorse a product or a service. He's got a cause of action for not getting the written consent of a model. And on top of all that, since he owns the copyright, he's got a copyright case. Most models or lay people who are portrayed in a photograph don't have the copyright to the photograph.
Yeah, and
so
the
also, bottom line is Sacha Baron Cohen's about to own a medical cannabis store.
Yeah,
my wife has already given me permission to marry him. That's enough.
It's going to be a lot of money. But this happens to just even if you're in Iowa and you're taking a picture of the local football hero, and then the local deli says, "Oh, that would be great if I could use that as endorsement. He's in here all the time. Can we use that picture?" You better make sure that you have the releases signed, nothing verbal. We go over oral releases, which are allowed in a couple states, but we highly recommend not to do it. And if by some chance you are getting a chance to photograph someone like Borat, we also include in our class a whole bunch of releases to download. We explain that there's more than just one type of release. We have adult releases, we have minor releases, we have a celebrity release. Because sometimes if you shoot somebody like that, and it doesn't have to be Borat, it could be the local news guy in your town. And they might want to sign something that says celebrity release because one, it helps their ego, and two, it has restrictions on it. You want to know that you're going to be able to use that image in your own promotion, but not use it for advertising or anything else. And that makes the subject feel a lot better.
And a common one is a fundraiser, where you have either a local celebrity, a local politician, or a big celebrity like Sofia Vergara, which for some reason I tend to use as my favorite celebrity, I don't know why. And Sofia Vergara might say, you could sell 5 prints of this image of me, so long as all the money goes to the American Cancer Society. You can sell 5, period, nothing more. And she's good with that. If she would see that in an ad for Sony TV, her lawyers would go into overtime. The other thing we mentioned about athletes, one of the newer things about athletes is that now athletes, NCAA athletes, can get paid for their use of their image, portrait, or likeness, which means that if a kid is in uniform, make sure that you have a written model consent, because now they can sue you and collect real money.
Yowzer.
Yeah, and there were a couple other things we did too that I think are kind of interesting about copyright and releases. A lot of guys who do like wedding photography, or even if you're a commercial photographer and you have a second shooter shooting behind the scenes shot, or you're a wedding photographer and you have a second shooter, if you don't have a written contract with them to get the pictures, they own the pictures that they take. Doesn't matter if it's your camera, your equipment, and this has happened to some wedding photographers where they hire a second shooter and the guy says, oh, you know what? I'm going to sell these pictures directly to the bride. And they can do that legally unless you have the paperwork. So we also have in the downloadable part, we have a second shooter contract.
1 page.
Yeah.
1 page lets you sleep at night. 1 page.
Yeah. Dude, I'm stunned to hear this.
I mean, there's tons of great information here, but we do have to take a break.
Yes, a break.
We have to take a break. When we come back, if you guys have any questions for Jack and Ed, just ask them in the chat. We'll be more than happy to ask them those questions, and then we'll continue this conversation right when we get back from the break.
I thought they gave us a break to have us on.
Yeah.
Give them never break.
Hello, I'm Leonard Johnson, and I'm very excited to be here doing my first class at Kelby One. Now I'm going to teach you how to take your images from start to finish with lights, beauty dishes, V-flats, tethered to a computer with Capture One, Capture Pilot, so my makeup artist can follow through. So creating beauty portraits, fashion images. I enjoy doing beauty photography because I like being around people. I think I'm different from other photographers because of the way I shoot. I work with a mood board. and I follow that mood board from start to finish to create whatever look I'm going for, and I'm working closely with my team. So creating a team is the way to go if you want to elevate those images, and that's the way I do it to separate me from the crowd. So in this class, I'm going to take you through how to create impactful images from start to finish. So come join me in my latest class at calbe1.com.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by B&H Photo, the professional source since 1973.
Hey, we are back. Scott and Eric are here with our very special guests, Jack and Ed, and we are talking about copyright and model release. We want to hear from you, so if you have questions that you would like us to pose to Jack and Ed, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, we had a comment here from Stuart, and Stuart saying one of my Disney World pictures showed up on a Russian travel agency site.
Oh, boy.
Okay. Well, first question is,
That's a tough one.
is it registered?
Yep.
Okay, the question is, you cannot go to court, you cannot do anything unless you have a copyright registration obtained from the United States government, no substitutions, that's the only place you can go to. You need a registration of that shot, and then an attorney who knows what he or she is doing, so you got a 10% chance there.
Exactly.
Has to see if there are copyrightable elements in there. So in other words, if it's simply a photograph of a guy in a Mickey Mouse costume, you may not have a copyright case because Disney owns all those marks.
And they're aggressive.
They're very aggressive. If it's a photograph of 2 or 3 kids, you know, sucking on the same ice cream bar, and it has, quote, nothing to do with Disney, they just happen to be in Disney, well, that's a copyrightable photo. And if that has been appropriated, or as I like to say in legalese, stolen, the only way to bring a case is to have that image registered. The sooner the better, right away.
Yeah. There's 3 mistakes that people make when they get infringed, and it happens all the time. The first thing is they go on social media, which is a horrible idea for a bunch of reasons. One, from what we've seen, over 90% of the comments are usually wrong and bad information. The other part about going on social media is it's what Ed calls discoverable. Even if you take down the information, that post that you put up there can be found by the other side and can work against you on things that you say. Yeah. And that happens all the time. The second thing people say is write a letter to the people who infringed. Like, that doesn't work. That usually just gets ignored. And then I think the worst thing they tell people to do is send an invoice. Send an invoice for $500, $1,000, you know, $5,000, do it 2 times, 3 times, you know, 10 times what you charge. You send that invoice in, it's going to be ignored. Who would pay an invoice like that came out of the blue?
I've only been saying this for 42 years. It's the dumbest thing that you can possibly do. If you see your image infringed in Home Depot on Main Street in Plainview, New York, the odds are it's infringed in 1,000 or 1,500 Home Depots, maybe Ace Hardware, maybe Lowe's.
Maybe they did a mailer on it.
Right.
Maybe it was included in a completely different thing that you didn't see.
So you don't know the full nature and extent of who's infringed, how it was infringed, and the law gives you the right to get, I'm going to use again a very technical legal term, lots of money if people have intentionally stolen your photograph without trying to get a license or a permission to use it.
And what's going to happen, I'm going to interrupt, what's going to happen with that invoice that you sent in for, say, $1,000, because you thought that was going to be a lot of money on this, you go to somebody like Ed and he says, oh, this is going to be worth, this could be worth 50,000, 67, whatever he thinks through his experience, and a lot of experiences, and the judges that you've been in front of know that you know this stuff. So he'll say, oh, this looks like we could probably do something, this is in the area of $60,000. Problem is, you sent the client an invoice for $1,000. Now you're in front of the judge, and the other side brings in the invoice for $1,000, and they look at Ed and go, what's this? You're suing for $60,000, but I got an invoice here where your client would be happy with $1,000 for this.
Actually, the judges are a little bit more articulate. They say, if they don't know me, Greenberg, what are you being a pig here? That's the legalese.
That's the legalese?
So, yeah, that's the legalese. What are you being a pig? Your guy would have taken 1,000, and that's the same kind of reasoning that if, as a photographer, I get ripped off by you, and I send an email to Scott, and I say, Jack ripped me off, and he used his image on an ad for XYZ computers. I would have taken $5,000 if anybody had asked me. Now, if there's a court case, that letter is going to hold up. Scott cannot withhold that letter from a subpoena, and the attorney is going to say, isn't it true that you would have taken $5,000? So the only references or communications that are privileged are between your spouse, you and your spiritual advisor, rabbi, priest, minister, imam, your shrink, your doctor. That's it. Your best friend may have kept all of your secrets for the last 60 years, but if he gets served with a one-paragraph subpoena, he's going to spill his guts.
And it's a fear the photographers have. They say, oh, I don't want to go to a lawyer. I don't want to make a big deal about it. Over 99% of these things are handled by lawyers. They don't go to court. They don't go in front of a jury. They don't go in front of a judge. It's handled outside of court. And it's not a difficult process. And many lawyers aren't going to charge you just to hear if you have enough for a case. You know, what is this about? So it's a huge, huge fear. In fact, we knew somebody who's a war photographer. He said before he started dealing with lawyers, the thought of going to a lawyer, he said, I'd rather be in a foxhole with bullets going overhead than going to talk to a lawyer.
Until he got his first check.
Until he got his first check. He said,
right.
well,
I have a question for you. Photographers, like you said, when someone posts on social media, you get all kinds of comments and they're usually wrong. Where do, by and large, photographers learn about copyright?
Okay. Oh, easy. Kelby1.
No. Besides, I'm not talking about you guys. So take people that are out of the know.
Right.
Where does your average photographer learn about legal matters for copyright, model releases?
Well, I have never seen a certificate to be an internet expert on anything. So Kim Kardashian is about as much of an expert on photo law as any other photographer. So you should not rely on the internet. You can go to the internet and go to the copyright law, and it's United States Code 17, or you could just Google the copyright law or the copyright Act.
Or actually,
and first read it yourself, because it's not that complicated, and then go to a website of someone who has written on the topic, who is, drum roll please, a lawyer. You wouldn't get medical advice from someone who's not a lawyer. You wouldn't take medical advice from a photographer. So there's plenty of materials that we put out and others put out that are accurate, but you have to make sure that this is written by a reputable lawyer. Many of the law schools put out materials that are very easy to read. We have a blog that answers questions. We have 2 books that answer questions. So there are many reputable sources, but never ever use a photographer or a non-lawyer or a non-law professor to take legal advice, ever.
And there's a couple lawyers/photographers that talk a lot about this, but they've never actually had a case on it. And that's the one thing about Ed. Ed is a litigator. He's been in federal court doing these types of things. And one of the sites you didn't mention is simply copyright.gov. That's where you go to register your images, but they also have a lot of really good information there too.
Even though it's a government site.
Yeah. And they have it for kids, which actually is not bad.
Yeah.
The little slideshow they have for kids to talk about copyright and explain it is actually really well done.
If someone is charging you for the advice or they're trying to sell you a product in connection with the advice, don't read it.
Yeah, and don't let other people register your images for you. It's a waste. It's very easy to do after you do it once. Once it's explained to you, you go, this isn't bad at all. In fact, that's what we did in our class, is we have a step-by-step, screen-by-screen explanation of what you have to fill out.
And Jack goes through it meticulously. Some of the search and settle firms that claim to track your copyrights, some of them offer to register your copyrights. Now, what happens if they screw up on the registration? Answer, nothing. So we've had clients come to us and say, well, I had fill-in-the-blank company register my copyright. I said, where is it? Well, they never sent it to me. And I've called them up, and I've sent them letters, and I say, we represent. You sent in this application 3 years ago. Where's the registration? Oh, we never got it back. And never told the photographer. The work is not registered.
These search firms actually charge you 50% of whatever you end up getting. That's separate from what a lawyer is going to charge also for that case if they have to hire a lawyer. There was somebody wrote an article, a couple in Australia, I don't remember their name because I never really followed them. I know they had a big following, and they said, oh, we had an infringement case and this is what we collected on it. You know, we were awarded this and we ended up getting about 15%. I read that and the first thing I said, I knew what it was. They had a search firm, they took 50%, and then there was a lawyer who took 35%.
More importantly, as a practical nuts and bolts level, and you won't read it in any of their ad materials because this would require honesty, if a judge or a jury finds out that there is a search firm involved that's getting a cut of whatever money is being awarded, juries and judges hate that. They hate it. They view the photographer as a troll, as someone looking to sue people. So the judges and the juries aren't going to pay a search firm 30% for finding a picture, because you'll have an attorney like me or someone at least as bright as me, and there are plenty, who will say to the photographer, Mr. Photographer, in the event the jury awards you $100,000, other than your spouse and your lawyer, does anybody else get any of that money? And they say, oh yes, my search firm. And fill in the blank, image rights, pic rights, Pixie, doesn't matter. They'll get 30%. And then I'll say, for doing what? Well, they found the infringement. Well, who were they working for? They're working for you, or they're working for your lawyer? Because they can't split a fee with a lawyer. That's unethical. And why should they get 30% of a fee when no human being is actually doing any work? So in other words, if the case is worth $100,000 and they get 30%, they do no more and no less work than if the case is worth $500,000 and they get $150,000. Judges and jurors hate them. Then they wind up this single solo photographer who's sympathetic to every jury everywhere in America, now looks like basically a whore trying to go to court to rip off a company and make money.
Yeah, but there's other things that happen even long before you get to court, is that they will negotiate, and basically they'll take the first offer that comes down the table because they're working in speed.
Right.
They make more money in volume, and if they don't spend a lot of time collecting money for you, that's a good thing for them. So if somebody says, we'll settle for 1,000, they go, oh, great, and then you end up with 50% of that, you're happy, you got 500. You find out later that this could have been worth 10, 20, 30 times that. And that happens all the time. They're not working in your best interest.
They don't have lawyers. They don't have lawyers negotiating these fees. And by the way, of the, I don't know, dozen or so times where I have represented the purported infringer and the company claiming money on the infringement, not because I'm a genius, although I am, we have not paid one dime to any search and settle firm, and any letter that any of my clients get from a search and settle firm, we insist on going to trial. Because judges, and you'll see it with the copyright trolls, judges hate these cases. Attorneys have filed so many of these cases, and the names of those attorneys are well known, that my first job in front of a judge who doesn't know me is to justify that this is a real case, that we're not trolling for these $5,000 and $10,000 collection cases, and that my client is a real client, a real photographer with a real infringement case, not looking to use the courts to pick up a couple of $1,000s here and there.
Yeah, do your research. Make sure if you're going to hire a lawyer, you need an intellectual property lawyer, hopefully somebody in your area, and research to see if there's anything about them on the internet. There's about 2 lawyers that I know of out there who are poisoned. One of them's already had his license removed in New York and several other places.
He's had suspended in New York, and he's been disbarred in one jurisdiction in California, one jurisdiction in North Carolina, and
just be wary.
He's been
Get recommendations. Talk to friends who maybe have hired lawyers, but definitely do research if you're going to do something like that, like you would with anything. Would you go to a brain surgeon by somebody who put out a shingle? No,
Yeah.
you're gonna want to find out, did this guy do this before? Is he any good? Or it's just, he's my cousin Joe's neighbor son who just graduated from law school. That's not who you want.
the tease is that these firms say, you don't have to pay us any money up front, we'll take care of all the expenses. Well, the fact is, when the expenses need to be paid, they don't pay them, they don't want to pay them, they settle the case. That's number one. Number two, when I am contacted by somebody, and other attorneys who do what I do, and we're contacted by Sally Smith from one of these companies, and it says claims specialist, the first letter we write back is, where's the copyright registration? Because we are going to have this case in court, we are paying you $0. So your photographer lives in Dallas, your company is in LA, you have to sue in Florida, so we will defend this case in Florida, and make sure to tell your client that she's in for a couple of trips down to Florida, and this is the one that really bothers them, they have to hire a lawyer.
Well, this is definitely one of those topics where I think a lot of people are interested. We got a lot questions coming.
Oh, good.
What a shock in there.
But we have to take a break.
Yes, a break.
We have to take a break. These segments go so quick when we're talking about this stuff, right?
And Eric, you're the adult in the room, so thank you for saying it's break time.
We do need to take a
remember,
break because we've got a couple things. We've got we got Photoshop World coming up. So
We do. We have Photoshop World is back.
Let's check out. We've got a little spot for Photoshop World, and then when we get back, we have tons of questions for Jack and Ed. I'm hoping we'll get through them, but we'll see.
So just stop asking questions because we have so many.
Well, the problem is Ed gets paid by the hour, so he long answers.
Yeah, why don't you just let them start asking questions?
He's
Fire
on a
away.
break. He's on a
We
break.
will right after the break.
Right after the break. Don't go away. We'll be right back here on The Grid.
Have you ever gone to the movies and after spending $30 on popcorn and a ticket, you walked out of the theater thinking, man, that movie was just an excuse to sell toys? But I have started to think that maybe I can look at those toys a different way. And I am a storyteller at heart. And the stories I want to tell are based on those cinematic universes that I love so much. So maybe I could use those toys to tell the stories that I want to tell. The only limit is my imagination. The best part is, you could do the same thing. So join me for my class on Unlocking Storytelling with Toy Photography, only on Kelby One.
For over 20 years, leading software developer Boris FX has made its mark on the film and television industry. Now, our Academy and Emmy Award-winning visual effects tools are available for photographers. Welcome to Optics. Optics is a collection of 160 filters for Photoshop and Lightroom. Simply apply the effect and launch the interface. Optics features thousands of customizable and creative presets for photo editing and effects layering. The top tools include lens flares for cinematic looks, realistic night skies with star fields and moon generator, add lightning with on-screen interactive control. The Easy Mask tool creates masks with just a few clicks. Optics is available now as a plugin for Photoshop and Lightroom and includes the standalone application for Mac OS and Windows. Get Optics now for 25% off. Visit borisfx.com, add Optics to your cart, and apply coupon code KELBY25.
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by Canon.
That's right.
Well, he couldn't rule.
Okay, we are back.
You got to understand, on the whole break, we've been talking about this stuff, right?
Yeah, we can. This is such I could just listen to this for days. Just a reminder, go to photoshopworld.com and sign up. It's going to be a phenomenal conference.
Awesome.
We're endeavoring to make it as much like the in-person conference as we can. So it is. We started this in 1999.
Yeah, 1999. And we're partying like it's 1999.
We are. We're partying like it's 1999. We're charging less than we did in 1999.
Yes, we are.
Anyway, it's going to be great. We've got a wonderful instructor team. I mean, you can see some of these amazing instructors. Very excited.
We
amazing
even got
instructors.
Like a lot of bonus sessions happening. Yeah.
And Dave Clayton. Great instructors, and Dave Clayton too.
And all the bonus sessions, after hours events that you would have at Photoshop World, we're going to have all that stuff.
Parties, Midnight Madness.
So it's going to be.
By the way, just so you know, we don't ever do Midnight Madness at midnight.
Yeah.
We used to. Then it became 11 o'clock madness. Now it's 10 o'clock madness. The older I get, it's going to be early bird special madness.
That's because you're living in Florida.
Yeah, so it's going to be the early bird madness.
All right, let's hit some questions.
So we were talking. You guys were talking about like search firms and all that stuff. So I think this ties into that question because I think people want to know like, how do I find my images? So Nancy's asking, is there a program that sweeps or looks for the internet for your images or that? What do you do? Like, because I think that's the appeal that photographers have with like a search firm. They say, oh yeah, go find my images. But how would you do that?
Well, there's two very obvious ones. One's Google Images, which is very good. It's a great search engine for it. There's another one called TinEye. TINEYE.com, and that's also free, and that's pretty good. But honestly, there's a lot of stuff that doesn't show up on the internet. That's the one thing people don't understand. They think, oh, it's so easy to steal on the internet, but then it shows up on a T-shirt, it shows up in a store.
Here's my, I'm glad you asked that question, although I hate when politicians say that. The biggest copyright cases I have had by far, don't show up on the web. Could be a billboard, like that Borat billboard. You can leave the Las Vegas airport and see billboards of which performers are performing at which hotels. That's not going to appear on the web anywhere. I've had cases with, and we showed it yesterday, signed souvenirs of Bo Jackson. You will not find that on the internet. Coffee cups. Many companies don't advertise on the web anymore because they're knowingly infringing, they know they won't get caught. One of our cases had to do with a set on a Broadway show. doesn't show up on the internet.
Oh, that was a big one.
That was a big one. None of these companies search anywhere other than the net. So theoretically, if someone cranks out 10 million coffee mugs and sells them at Walmart, none of these search firms will find them. Our firm we use people to go into particular stores, to go into particular shopping malls, to browse, to look around when we have reason enough to check for it. The model agencies that we represent, some of the larger photo studios and some of the smaller photo studios, we have them hire interns from the School of Visual Arts or just pay somebody, and they come in once a week and they do a search. Or model agencies, a college student comes in twice a week and he searches, I don't know, 50, 60 models, top models on the web to see if there's use on the web.
Just not with a generic tool.
Right. Now, on top of that, since this particular agency that I'm referring to does a lot of high fashion, they also have people physically flipping through Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, whatever the magazine. Once a month, you flip through the magazines.
I had one of my best ones was my niece called me and said, oh, I think I saw one of your pictures in People magazine. I said, oh, it's probably something that looked like something I shot. And she sent it to me and it was, oh my God, that's my shot in this ad. So it's, in other words, we don't have a clear answer.
Yeah, but I think the last way that you said there with a lot of that stuff, that's usually how it happens. It's usually, you as a photographer showing people your work.
Exactly.
But then them seeing, like, I've had that happen before to me too, the same thing, where it's like somebody said, hey, I saw your image here.
But there is, quote, an answer. So if you find one, a lawyer who knows what he or she is doing, finds a few more, and then sends a formal lawyer's letter, and I'm not going to get into the legal weeds, but it says, you need to disclose each and every use of this image. Yeah. Where is it gone? Every media, every company, et cetera, et cetera.
And he doesn't show his hand.
Right.
He doesn't tell them that I know you used it here, here, and here. Now you tell me where you used it. So, and if you don't tell me, they're in much bigger trouble.
So my favorite example, because it's just got a lot of theatrics to it, we sued, they're the 13th or 14th largest company in the world. And they claimed that they had used these pictures on 2 sites. And the judge looks at me, looks back at the attorney and says, you know what? I know that Mr. Greenberg and his associate, Ms. Fitzgerald, would not be here if this was only used on 2 sites. And the judge looks at me and he says, Mr. Greenberg, am I right? I go like this. He says, more than 2? So my associate Tamara had to run around town buying, for those of us of a certain age who remember, tractor feed paper.
You know, the ones with the holes on the sides.
Yeah.
With the perfory, which is a very good Scrabble word. Very good Scrabble. 178 other uses. So Tamara says to the judge, Your Honor, we ran this, here's 178 other uses. So the judge says, so, Ms. Fitzgerald, if you come up here, we can go through these, and they're on. And Tamara looks at her watch and says, well, they were as of a half an hour ago. He says, come on up. And he says to the attorney for the big multinational corporation, pick a number from 1 to 10. He says 5. He says, I'm going to go to every 5th site. God help you if it's on every 5th site. And it was.
All right, well, there you go.
Was that a good, concise answer?
Yeah, that was great.
No. I swear I could listen to these.
So,
remember
there's more questions. There's more questions.
Wait a minute, just remember one thing.
Okay.
These webs, when these I'm going to call
He's so
them,
excited. He's so excited.
Yeah, because it makes me nuts.
Yeah.
These web crawlers, wrong term, are automatic. So there's no human thought. So when you have attorneys or people in our office and offices like ours, we know that if this ad is being used to sell Stanley tools at Home Depot, it's likely being used at Ace Hardware. Computers don't think that way.
Yeah.
Computers just pick up the image And that's it.
So you're saying the human element is still very important.
That's right.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So Heather is asking a question here. I think this is an important one. So can someone sign a model release at any time, like a year or so after the photo was taken?
Yes. It's not the preferred way to do it, but yes.
Yeah.
And we do go over on releases in the class. We talk about, even though you have a generic release, be very careful for certain situations. We talk about sensitive issue releases. And it could be your release and you just handwrite something in. But if you're doing a nude or a partial nude or an implied nude, you should have that written in the release. And if you're doing something that might show up pharmaceutical, or somebody showing somebody that might be depressed or have a disease or something, you have to have that information in the release. A generic release will not necessarily work for everything, but if you're just using it for your own use and on the web and everything else, the generic release is fine.
We have the forms for each.
That's good information.
Everybody who's listening to us, I'm sure, has watched Law and Order. An adult
That's
with
required.
the legal authority to sign a contract on behalf of their child could not give the authority to have their 9-year-old child portrayed as a rape victim. So what the TV producers have to do is they have to get a judge to sign off. The judge talks to the 9-year-old actress and sees how mature the 9-year-old actress is and whether she realizes she's playing a part, et cetera, et cetera. So there, even a release is not good enough.
Right.
So it's the same thing. If an adult who wants to do an X-rated movie has every right to say, I know I'm going to be portrayed, in an X-rated film, or I know I'm going to be portrayed as a serial killer. A child does not have that right, and a parent does not have that right to sign on behalf of their child to be portrayed as a victim of sex trafficking, for example.
And Eric, to answer the question that was asked also, if you're going to sign something a year later or whatever later, which is perfectly fine, make sure you put the date of the shoot in, and if there's any confusion because you've shot them several times, attach maybe a little image, a little tiny print of what image you're talking about, what session you're talking about. So somebody can't say, oh, I signed that release, but that wasn't for this session.
Right.
So you need the date, and it would be even more helpful to have a copy of the image on the release.
And one other thing about date that Jack mentioned, thanks to email, nobody dates anything anymore. Not that they want to date lawyers or anything, but because people send so many emails and it's predated,
yeah,
I get letters from lawyers that don't have dates on them.
Oh, Jack's
I have
nuts.
invoices, delivery memos, contracts, no dates, just signatures, because so many people are so used to having the email or an equivalent auto date the document.
Like just an auto timestamp.
Well, a contract or an agreement without a date leads at least 2 attorneys to spending a lot of time and billing a lot of money to find out who was where, when, what, when it's easily avoided by just putting a date on it. In 2nd grade, you had to date everything, right?
How about another question?
Yeah, we got tons of them here. So
hey,
here
but
we go.
honestly, that was great information because Eric does a lot of X-rated nude stuff. He's the model. But
and they've never had me sign that, so I'm going back to them.
So that's you're going to want to start signing that for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, the other mistake people make on signatures is they say, oh, that's my wife or my husband or my kid or whatever. I don't need a signature from them. Guess again. As Ed likes to say, what's one of the most contentious things that he sees in his career? Divorce cases.
Yeah, I can see that.
And or you photograph your, well, I can go on and on, but why don't we go to another question?
So Barb's asking, so I photograph sporting events for our newspaper. Mm-hmm. Then I post them to SmugMug for purchase. Is this okay?
Oh, boy.
You're going to get 2 different answers here. You might get an Ed answer, and you'll get a Jack answer.
All right.
Go ahead, Ed. Take it away.
Okay, first of all, what is it, 256 shades of gray on the color wheel or something like that?
On an 8-bit file, 256.
She is firmly in the gray area because every league, professional, NCAA, could be NBA, NHL, has their own set of rules, number
Little
one.
League.
Number two, every arena has their own set of rules. So...
But she's doing this at high school.
Hang on.
Sporting events for our newspaper. I don't know.
Yeah. Every arena, every school board, every school district has their own set of rules. What the overriding thing that the professional, college, and high school things are trying to avoid is play-by-play coverage. So generally, if you're in the stands and you take a photo at a high school game and you run it as an editorial photo in the sports section with the approval of the school board, because it's always good to have friends on the school board for lots of reasons, you're generally going to be fine. If you do that at a professional sporting event, and we've done lectures going 2 hours on this, if you do this at a professional sporting event, you are looking for trouble.
What if it's not professional?
You're looking for trouble. If it's an amateur event, the Supreme Court and the recent state court decisions have blurred the amateur-professional line, so to speak. So 3 months ago, if you played for University of Southern California, you were an amateur. Now you're an amateur with a legal right to make money on your name, image, portrait, and likeness. So it's a gray area. She should become friendly if she's shooting in the same arenas, for the same school districts, become friendly, get their approval, and avoid anything that smacks of play-by-play.
Okay.
Well, to get to her question, because I know, because she's going to just put it on Smug Mug. I understand what she's doing. She's doing, high school sports, and it's the local kids and everything else. Ed said it's a gray area. Every single school district in the country has different rules on it. Try and find out if there are specific rules in your area. But in most times, you're just going to go ahead and do it. If somebody objects, I don't care what the law is, I don't care what your rights are, take it off. Don't get into an argument with anybody about it. It's the type of thing I would, if it's a gray area, it's a gray area I would go into. I have no problem with that as a professional, but understand that if anybody gets upset or if anybody says anything, that picture comes right out.
Yeah, don't be a hero trying to stand up for a cause. Take it down and then go see a lawyer. And then the lawyer can say, if such is the case, they made you take it down, they made you refund your fee, now you're persona non grata at this arena where you make X number of dollars a year. Let's sue the heck out of them.
No,
or not.
But do talk to the local school. I did a lecture once on some of these issues on releases, and in the audience was the head lawyer for, I think it was Lifestyle. It's whatever one of the big major companies that does all the yearbooks all around the country.
Right.
And she enjoyed the lecture, and we talked about a bunch of things, and I learned a lot from her. I went to her lecture too, and she told me about all the different rules that they have to follow per state, per city, per county, per school district. And she says she has to find out what they are, and it's a big mess sometimes. So you're going to have to do a little bit of research in your own community. If other people are doing it too, and you see that it's accepted in the community, you probably won't have a problem.
I'm going to throw in one quick thing. I know we're in a rush, but we told the story in the program, so you'll hear the longer version. A professional hockey team sent a letter to my client, said you cannot take pictures, you're using a professional camera. And I said, how do you define a professional camera? And the NHL defined a professional camera by any camera with a lens of 3 or more inches. And then Jack sent me an ad from B&H Photo with all these professional cameras with lenses.
Well, super tellies on, fixed lenses.
And I sent that, and I said, so in other words, my client could have used these cameras, which cost 3 times as much as the camera they used. So the arenas, the leagues, the teams, there's no consistency. They don't know anything. Just avoid play-by-play.
Eric, do you have another one in the bin?
Oh, yeah, we got tons. So here we go. Kim is asking, how does this affect street photography? You can't get a model release for everybody because it's more posed than spontaneous. So how does this affect when you're doing street photography?
Well, street photography, there's two things. One is First Amendment rights. You have a right to be on the street and take pictures of people. It's completely acceptable. Where the law comes into play really is how are you using the pictures? And we talk about this in a class. There's certain uses you could use. If you're doing it editorial use, no problem. If you're doing a fine art show of these images, no problem. If you want to sell them, if you want to put them into stock, if you're going to use them in an ad for somebody, that's where the problems come in, and that's where you're going to run into problems. Now, that's not to say that you can't get releases. I will tell you, I know stock photographers, one in particular who unfortunately has passed away, Bill Bachman, who's a good friend, lived down here in Florida. He would have an assistant trail him, and he would take notes, and he would ask people for releases as Bill took pictures, even in foreign countries. And if they couldn't get a release, the assistant would mark it down, and they would throw away that image.
And we got into this yesterday about walking around with a pad of releases, which
two-page, non-carbon required, because you want them to sign one, and well, actually, you want to keep the original, and you want to give them the copy.
But the tip is, if you can do this, and you're a street photographer, and you have a young child who can walk over to the subject with the release, and then the adult says, oh, who are you? Oh, that's my daddy. Oh, you work for your daddy? Yeah, can you sign this? Do you think they ever read it? No, they think it's adorable that this little, and they sign it, and then the little girl gives the copy of the release, and the person whose picture has been taken feels flattered.
And make sure that the reason we say a pad is you want to have a couple releases on there already signed. Nobody wants to be the first one. So you sign one yourself, you get a friend to sign one, so that when you're handing it to them, they can see other people have already did this. And if you're going to use the little kid thing, make sure it's a cute kid, not like somebody who's escaped from our gang.
Yes.
You know?
So let me ask you a question, Ed. Let's use New York City as an example. So I walk up to somebody, I've been doing street photography, and I go up and I go, hey, look, when you weren't really paying attention, I was secretly taking pictures of you.
I would never say that, but go ahead.
But that's the reality of it. I was sneaking pictures of them. That's the reality of it is, I'm sneaking pictures of you when you're not looking, and will you sign this legal document that says I can use the pictures? Because they could have been picking their nose, they could have been
No, see, Ed doesn't have experience
shooting a
in
bird.
this. I do, and I will tell you, outside of New York, a lot of people will sign it, and I'm shocked. And I always was a little scared to ask people, and I find out people are thrilled for it.
Yeah.
Especially if you tell them you're going to send them a copy. You show them and you send them a copy.
Yeah.
New York, unfortunately, people are a little. In fact, there was one person. The only time I heard of a problem was somewhere where people were signing it, and we came up to one woman, and she said, "I'm from New York, and my husband's a lawyer. If I sign this, he's going to kill me." So it depends on where, but you'd be amazed at how people will sign those.
And you don't pitch it like you've been sneaking around. You just say, look, you know,
I think you look wonderful.
I'm not a professional. I just took this great picture of you. Here, take a look at it. I'd like to be able to use this and send you a print.
Just sign your name and address on the bottom of this release
here.
Here
you go. Here's a release.
Sign this blank check too while I'm here.
Next question.
Oh,
next
boy.
question.
All right. So Phil's asking,
good old Phil.
In an international scope, what languages do you need to have the release available?
You have to have it in the local language.
Okay.
And if it's not a language you speak, usually you have a fixer with you. And what will happen is if you're in some places where they might be marking it with an X, you're going to have your fixer as a witness who's going to testify that that was the person who signed the release. The other thing that's a huge help if you're dealing with releases, and especially if you're going to do something like that or street photography, is I take a picture of the person with the release. Not for any legal reason, but just to figure out which release goes with which person. The releases are numbered.
Holding the release, and as we did in the class, having them hold their driver's license with their fingers over the numbers or a passport, like that.
That's hard to get. I just have him sign it and hold the release.
All right, I have a question. Now, this is going to sound bad. You're probably going to yell at me, so I'm setting up myself for yelling.
He'll yell, I won't.
And then after this question, we do have to take a break.
Okay. All right. So when I do a shoot, I do always use model releases if it's, with a professional model, or even if it's not a professional model. I always get releases. But I use an app, and I take a picture of them. Because what's nice is it emails them a copy of the release. It takes a picture so I can see that the person that, but sometimes I'm looking for a release. I don't remember the person's name. In some years I've shot 100 people. I don't remember who was who. I don't always have that, because sometimes I'll name the files what the shoot was for.
Right.
It's named Ybor City shoot, and then here's the model. I don't remember who.
Here's a quick answer.
Well, we got a couple things. We can do the play acting.
We'll do the play acting.
Yeah.
Quick answer is paper is king. Paper is king. It's nice to have electronic copies, but paper is king because, and we'll play act this out. I'll play lawyer. I think I could do it. I could pull off lawyer.
I think so.
He plays photographer, and I'm representing someone who claims that she never signed the release.
And I want to add something after we're done with this, too, real quick.
So I say, what do you do for a living, sir?
I'm a photographer.
And as a photographer, are you familiar with anything that's related to software that's used in photography?
Oh, yeah, these days, yes.
And have you ever heard of a software called Photoshop?
Oh, yes.
Well, my kid did a thing. I thought it was clever. He put my head on the top of the Eiffel Tower. Could you do that with Photoshop?
Oh, easily.
So you could move things all around on a page, on a digital page, all around and make a collage.
Yeah.
Could you move a comma from one line to another?
Uh-oh.
Okay? So you talk about digital releases, which can be altered easily to actually forge a signature, and everybody should use blue gel ink pens because they cannot be photoshopped out and they're very hard to forge. Forging someone's signature is a high art. It's extremely difficult.
Oh, that's a fun part in our class. But the one thing I do want to add to all of that after saying that, because I know you're going to go to a break, if you have nothing else, get the app and have them sign it on the app. It's not the ideal thing, but it is a ton better than nothing. So I would have no qualms about having an app on me because I never know when I'm going to get the shot. But Ed's not happy with that, but I'd say make sure you get it.
You don't know what the app says. I'm not looking at the release itself. So this is under the assumption that the content in the app, the content of the model release is fine, which is a big leap for me to make. But
again, that's a lawyer's point of view. I will say if you get somebody to sign a release, they're going to think in their mind, I signed a release, so
absolutely
it must be okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
well, I've used apps where you upload your own release, like the release that you use.
Much better.
And then I've had ones that it has a pre-made release in it as well.
Just use ours.
All right, just use yours. It's the best.
We should charge him for ours. Everybody else gets it for free.
But I should be charged. I agree.
You should pay.
All right.
All right, we do need to take a break, and then when we come back, we got prizes. We've got a few more questions.
We got to get it. This is so good. This is stuff.
We'll definitely get. We've got 3 more questions right here that I've got right here that will take us through the end.
Okay. All right. Let's take a short break, and then we'll come back. We'll get to those questions. We'll give some stuff away, etc. Blah blah. Coming up right after the break. Don't go away.
Hey guys, my name is Sam Haddix. I'm a portrait photographer from New England, and I have a brand new class on kelby1.com that I am super excited about. Do you ever feel like a left-brain person stuck in a creative industry? I definitely know that I do. Have you ever looked at an image and known that you like that image, but you're not sure why? In my new class, we're going to break down the whys. We're going to figure out why you like a particular image, and we're going to find ways to incorporate what you do like into making brand new images of your own. So if you want to unleash your own creativity, see me play guitar, and show off my tattoos, well, join me in my new class exclusively on kelby1.com.
Would you believe us if we told you that you could fit studio lighting in your pocket? Well, Lytra has made it possible. Lytra is a global award-winning brand that designs and manufactures professional-grade camera lights that are compact, rugged, and waterproof. Whether you're using Lytra gear in a photo studio or underwater, Lytra's mission is to provide content creators with flexible and unlimited lighting tools that can mount on any camera, anywhere. Their lights come with a high CRI or color rendering index, making them some of the most color accurate lights in the industry. Due to the light's compact and rugged design, photographers are able to use the lights in ways that their studio lighting never could. Lytra has also made multiple lighting accessories available to fit your every need as a creator. Whether you're shooting portraits, nailing a product shot, or even flying your drone, they have got you covered. Lytra enables photographers and filmmakers to focus on their craft and create something beautiful. What will you create?
This segment of The Grid is brought to you by Platypod, the world's most compact tripod base.
Make sure you don't miss any episodes of The Grid by subscribing to Apple's podcast app or iTunes. It's free, and we even have a special audio-only version too. So sign up today.
Okay, we're back. Scott and Eric are here, and we've got Jack and Ed with us. We're talking about copyright. Before we go we have 3 last questions, but before we go, I actually have an interesting story for Ed and Jack.
Drum roll.
So I get a letter from an attorney. A nasty letter, which all attorney letters are nasty. They're always very terrifying sounding.
Yep.
And the attorney says, I represent this model. I don't remember her name. I represent such and such a model. She is on the cover of your book, and he attached a photo of the book and says, you have her image on this book without her consent. There's no signed model release, and she intends to seek damages. And he said the model's name, and I looked at that and I go, I've never heard of this model. Mm-hmm. She's based in New York City. I'm like, I've never heard of this model. So I emailed back and said, I know the model on the cover. I've worked with this model. She's based in Tampa Bay, not in New York City. We worked together many times. And I think your customer's mistaken. And so he writes back and goes, nope. She looked at it again, and she is certain that you've taken her face and either photoshopped it into to the image or whatever. But it is she wants to pursue this. And then I remembered in the book, the very book that they're talking about, I showed a behind-the-scenes image from the photo shoot, and there was the model she is a photographer. She's an accomplished, very good photographer. She's also a model. There was the behind-the-scenes images of her in the thing, and I sent it back to the attorney with the behind. Take a look at page 26, and you'll see the photo shoot. You'll see that is not your client. And he writes back, "That's correct. It is not my client. She's relented. Sorry for the problem." But man, I was like, this is so. Also, so I called my assistant who was shooting with me. You know, he was at the shoot, right? I called him. I told him the story, and he goes, "Send me her picture." It looked like her twin sister. I'm telling you. But guys, have you ever in your life looked at a picture and said, this other person, that's Ed Greenberg? Have you ever? That's Jack Krasnicki. You've never looked at another person and said, that's me. But this model went to an attorney. She was so sure it was her.
My wife, who's out front, we were riding in a taxi coming out of Central Park, and we're crossing Fifth Avenue. There's a guy standing there waiting for the light to cross the street, and he is a dead ringer for me, poor guy. And my wife looks at me and says, "You are so lucky you're sitting here." He was my doppelganger.
Because I can just trade in for another new model right there.
Yeah, all I can think about is that lawyer who contacted you. He had to call the Mercedes dealer and cancel his.
He thought, wow, this book, I'm going to cash in. But that was just so real. Like, how can you say that, you ever looked at a picture and you go, oh, that's me, and it's just not you? That was weird. Okay, questions, Mr. Kuna.
All right, so this is a question. This is going to be a Photoshop question because, so Deb's asking, could you please talk about the legalities of colorizing old photos? She encountered a problem where somebody tried to modify a colorization that they did with mild modifications, claiming it's their own work.
No, God, that's one of those myths that we go over and over, and we go over it in the class quite a bit. There's no percentage change. There's no media change. We talk about that people are saying, oh no, this is a new work because it's a tattoo or it's a sculpture of the photograph. We can show you specific cases where the sculpture, especially Jeff Koons, a very famous sculptor, has lost 3 cases like that, where he took a photograph, made it into a sculpture, changed a bunch of stuff, doesn't matter. This falls under derivatives. We talk about copyright. There's something known as your bundle of rights. It's your exclusive rights to your photograph and to your work. It doesn't have to be a photograph, it could be artwork. But you have exclusive rights. One of those rights is derivatives. And this goes way back, even before copyright. We talk about a case of a Bible being copied in 561 AD. And the High King of Ireland ruled, and it's the only part of it that's interesting, he said, to every cow belongs its calf, to every book belongs its copy. So somebody can't take your work, and there was just a very big case with Lynn Goldsmith that we also talk about, where the courts finally clarified it quite a bit, because there was a very confusing case that was misinterpreted even by lawyers with Patrick Carriou, who sued Richard Prince over pictures of Rastafarians. And it was a very confusing rulings. In fact, the Lynn Goldsmith case that the Andy Warhol Foundation sued her on, which was kind of funny. They sued the photographer preemptively, trying to say fair use. The court was very specific, even referred to the other case to saying this really clarified it. It's a copy of her work, even though it's done in the Andy Warhol style and completely changed as far as the colors and the tones. It's a direct copy, and it's not allowed. It's not a fair use.
I have a simple answer to any illustrator or photographer who asks me about using another work as an example of something, and my answer is don't.
Yeah.
Don't use anything else, and you're covered and you're safe.
So that happened here years ago. So years ago, a designer brought me a cover of Photoshop User magazine, and it was for a particular subject and all, and it was phenomenal. I'm like, that's the best cover. That is incredible. Let's go with it. And they said, let me show you what I did. And they opened up a stock photo, and they said, and it was identical. I mean, they had copied it. This person was really talented in Photoshop. They copied it identical. And I said, you can't use that.
We can't do that.
And they were like, well, no, it's my own work. That's not that. I didn't use their picture. I redrew it from scratch. I'm like, you're stealing someone else's work. And they were really upset with me, because they were like, you don't understand. This is a derivative. And when you said that, reminded me of that situation. Yeah. They go, that's not the original. This is my copy.
Does anybody remember tracing paper? I mean, if I put a piece of tracing paper over an illustration and I do a perfect on tracing paper, is that an original work?
Now, one of the things we talk about, which also is confusing to people, is parodies and influence. Now, early in my career, and I show a lot of the pictures when I was known as a Norman Rockwell type photographer. And you look at the images and you look at Norman Rockwell and you're saying, yes, I can see the influence. It's exaggerated body poses, it's funny looking people, it's against white. And there's definitely, you can see the relation from one to the other. The relation. You won't see one of my pictures copying Norman Rockwell. Then we show a cover of Professional Photography magazine where I looked at it and I fell off my chair. Somebody took one of Norman Rockwell's illustration paintings and made a photograph trying to copy as much as they could. That's an infringement. And you just have to understand the subtleties of these types of things. Yeah. But you can be influenced by something and do it in the manner of, or the style of, but if you try to actually copy it and make it look like the original, that's where you're going to run into a problem.
And like you just said too, parody, also there's another thing with parody, and that's how like Saturday Night Live and others get away with that.
Or Al Yankovic.
Yeah, Mad Magazine.
Exactly.
We show some examples of Mad Magazine with, again, a Norman Rockwell picture that they updated for a contemporary reason and comment, and it is wonderful, and it's completely acceptable.
I would suggest to that person that in a rare moment of being extremely articulate, Jack explains derivatives in the seminar we did yesterday on copyright.
The class we did.
The class we did. He does it very well. Maybe Jeff Dunham was behind him operating his mouth, but he makes it
one
very
of my favorites.
clear.
All right, next question.
Yeah, so here's one from Stuart again. Stuart's asking, where do most of the fridge photos come from?
My favorite topic. Scott, you're going to be shocked.
And then there's a second part to that question of how do they get the high resolution pictures?
Oh, Scott, this is gonna shock Scott. Watch.
All right.
Let's see a picture of Scott. Okay.
Scott, 80% of the cases that we have now for models whose images have been used without consent, and 85% of our copyright cases all stem from their uses on medical websites. Medical websites.
Holy cow.
Local medical websites for plastic surgeons, dermatologists, dentists, podiatrists, lawyers, CPAs. They're being designed by website developers who can be 16 years old, who know absolutely nothing about the law, nothing about the Federal Trade Commission requirements or the Food and Drug Administration requirements. And 85%, in Florida alone, in the last 18 months, we had 18 cases that were resolved to the satisfaction of the model or photographer against medical websites in Florida.
And one of the answers we love on that is they always say, when they're saying, oh, you can't use it, it's an infringement. Oh, the intern did it.
Yeah.
So much so that we have a running joke where we said, yeah, the intern ate my homework. Because that's about what it amounts to.
You can't, for example, you can get a model release from a very, very pretty 40-year-old all-American housewife, and you can get a model release, and the model release says, I know you're going to use it in Dr. Smith's dermatology website in Daytona Beach, Florida. So the doctor puts that photograph on the website and runs it. Problem is, she's not an actual patient. Doctor's going to get sued. Doctor's going to have a problem with the FTC.
That's the bigger problem.
Doctor may have his license suspended, and the model's consent does not save the photographer, and the model's consent does not save the doctor.
Yeah. Also, you can't get away saying, well, somebody else did this. The final user is responsible. It doesn't matter that you hired someone and they made a mistake. If you're the final user, you're going to be responsible. Then it's up to you to go find the intern or the person who did it, and you could go after them. But the one we like, they're saying, well, I don't know how to find him.
Yeah, I don't know how to find him. Well, if you can't find him, it doesn't matter.
Spit it out.
You just made me lose my thought. On the medical websites, when you see the big television commercials for all the medications that you don't need with all the really great side effects, like weird dreams and all that kind of stuff, all of those are done well, and they'll say model portrayal, doctor portrayal, actor portrayal. Websites done by small companies who don't know these things don't put those disclaimers on there. And if those disclaimers are not in there, like doctor portrayal or actual client before and after, those are wonderful lawsuits, and they represent 85% of all the copyright infringement cases that we do. In number, not in size, we have bigger cases or sexier cases, but in number, those are the most frequent infringements.
So if Scott has a picture on Photoshop User Magazine of a big dragon, fire-eating dragon eating Tokyo, he has to put on that, not an actual dragon?
Okay. Not really Godzilla.
Actor portrayal.
Okay. So and that's the other part of the question was, where do these people get the high resolution images? And I know from my experience, like a lot of the stories, like they don't really get the high resolution image. They're just getting the image like off of Google Images or something like that.
Well, first of all, if anybody had told me this story when it happened, I would have not believed it. But 10, 12 years ago, we had a case against a very They're the #1 beverage manufacturer in the world. And there was a 12-pack. And on this cardboard 12-pack that was being sold on 3 continents, there were 6 images on the cardboard. All 6 images were low-res images.
They're the size of a postage stamp.
Would you have believed that a company whose name you would instantaneously know would use low-res images in a massive ad campaign on 3 continents? No, that's the look they wanted. So as part of that look, they used a model who was 17 years old, and the photo was from 1966. So they used a minor in an advertisement for an alcoholic beverage without her consent.
And if I go to Photoshop World, I'll learn how to upsize my images in Photoshop.
Exactly, right?
And make a high-res image.
Well, that's what I had a product recently that I had purchased, and when I got it, like the actual box had a stock photo on it because they hadn't removed the watermark.
The watermark was on it.
Right, and I've had that happen before. Now, could be somebody just forgot to actually
remove it.
However, knowing the type of product, because it was definitely one of those knockoffs, you know.
All right, just say it, Eric. It was marijuana.
Yeah.
Just say it. It's okay. It's legal in many places.
But anyways, it's one of those things where, it's a definitely, they don't need your high-res image to make it work,
Right. All right, did we catch all our questions, or do we have one left?
No, we have 2 left, or 1 left. Hold on, I got to get back to it. So, well, I have 2 left. One is this question would go quick, hopefully.
You don't know, Ed.
Actually,
this is
no,
a big
this won't go
build-up
quick.
for a quick question.
So, Joe's asking, and I think you guys are both going to have a different answer for this one. Should you use a lawyer that charges by the hour or by contingency?
There's no answer to that question because it depends on what the case is.
Exactly.
Certain cases don't work on a contingency. If I were to represent Scott because someone was suing Scott and trying to get money from Scott, how could I charge him a contingency? If Scott was suing Jack and trying to get money from Jack, then I could charge him on a contingency, and then I would charge Jack on an hourly.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's it. That didn't take too long. But the final question from Jay is asking, is photographing graffiti and then selling it within fine art sales considered infringement?
Yes.
Yes.
Because you're photographing somebody else's artwork. In fact, what we're seeing in New York right now, which is real interesting, some really nice graffiti, and the artist is putting a copyright symbol in their name in the graffiti.
And they're registering it.
Especially since there was a huge case about 5 Points, which is a completely different thing, but a building owner tore down a building with all this graffiti on it, and they were in court already being contested, and there were certain rights we're not going to get into because it's not about copyright, but the building owner lost a lot of money. The judgment went against him. These graffiti artists made a lot of money, and the graffiti artists, at least in New York, are realizing there's an intellectual property value to their graffiti. Right. So it's no different than if you took a picture of somebody's photograph and did the same thing. In the law, there's no difference. Graffiti, photograph, same thing. So would you take a picture of somebody's photo and do the same thing with it?
Yeah, so that's like, this is the weird blurry line. I know we've talked about it a bunch. It's like when you're taking a picture of somebody else's art, is that really a photo? Right. And then you get to, and when you get down to wanting to sell it, I mean, you're taking a picture of somebody else's work. It's not really, you're just taking a picture of somebody else's art.
Yeah, but there's no straight answer. You have to see the picture. Yeah. Did you do something to it to add a creative element? Did you do a particular lens? Was a certain lighting? If you add what we'd call a protectable element to that image, to even though it's somebody else's, to make it your own, at least you're going from a black and white area into a gray area.
So if that graffiti that you were taking, for example, was in a cityscape, and that graffiti's there, and
no, that's different. That's incidental.
No, wait. How do you know how it got there? How do you know that the building owner is not the person who painted that graffiti or paid the local kids on the block a few $100s to paint the graffiti so that they'll leave his building alone?
Yeah,
and he registered it. You don't know how it got there.
Bronx. They had a graffiti artist do the whole thing.
Right.
But there's also a famous case of Mercedes-Benz. They did a commercial, and they drove the car past this building that had a very, very well-known mural on it, a graffiti mural on it. And they were sued, and they lost. They said it was too prominent in it. Now, if you take a cityscape and it's sort of incidental and something else, then that's probably okay. Just like we talk about skylines. You could have a skyline of New York, perfectly fine. There's the Empire State Building, no problem. If you then put copy on it that says, you're the empire of photographers, or the empire of something, you're now trading on their mark. And it's not copyright, but trademark. And that's what trademark is.
And the example one of the examples that we used yesterday is the famous Chrysler building in New York, which I have an affection for because my grandfather and family members helped build the famous roof there. The Chrysler building has absolutely no association with the car company formerly known as Chrysler. None, zero. Yeah. So if Dodge wanted to do a commercial with the Chrysler building in the background, the owners of the Chrysler building would sue Dodge because they're trading on the history and the Art Deco and all of the branding that has gone into the Chrysler building over 100 years to a product that has absolutely no association whatsoever with the building.
But hopefully we're not scaring people. In the end, keep taking pictures. Keep doing things. Keep creating things.
You guys scared the crap out of us.
Don't copy anybody.
I know. Somebody's saying, I've never touched it.
I've never taken a picture of graffiti again. Never.
There's a very famous illustrator by the name of Anita Coons, who's lovely, and she's one of our clients. And I brought her in as a guest lecturer, and it was a master's class. And this woman who had to be in her 40s asks Anita, says to Anita, you know, I've been taking art classes my whole life. I have my BFA or whatever. I could never able to draw lips. So I was doing this piece, and I used Sofia Vergara's lips from a photo in People magazine. And Anita, who is very sweet and very low-key, says, let me get this straight. You've been an artist since you're 5 years old. You've taken all these courses, you have a degree, you have an advanced degree, and you can't draw a pair of lips? What is wrong with this picture? You need to copy a pair of lips? You should be ashamed of yourself.
Woo!
Already? On that shame.
I'm glad I wasn't there that day. All right. Well, Jack and Ed, thank you guys. You have been an absolute wealth of information. I could listen to you guys all day.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, he needs a life. He needs a life.
I don't believe it.
No, this is great stuff. You know what it is? This is one of those topics you just don't hear about, and that's why
nobody wants to talk about it, right?
That's because you don't watch The View.
That's probably right. This is absolutely right. But no, this is something that it affects, every serious photographer, and it can affect them in a huge way or a minor way. It affects graphic designers. It affects web designers. It affects people at companies everywhere. But you guys are the guys out there leading the charge to educate photographers about this, to protect photographers from making their own mistakes, right? It's not just protecting their own work but not infringing on somebody else's work by thinking that changing a hand position or changing some little thing all of a sudden gets them a free use of it.
You know, I can't believe I'm bringing this up because Tampa won the Super Bowl, so this really bothers me. Defense wins Super Bowl. So if you do these routine, simple forms and be defensive, you won't get into trouble. You won't be paying lawyers big money because you'll stay out of trouble.
You know what the other thing is that wins Super Bowls?
What?
Tom Brady. Tom Brady wins Super Bowls.
Do you know how much I hate Tom Brady as a Jet fan?
Okay, so you got to realize, I hated Tom Brady until 1 year ago.
we both hated Tom Brady with a passion.
I used to make a Tom Brady joke in my seminar that brought the house down. And now he's my hero.
Oh, yeah.
I can go drive by his house. Hey, Tom, what's up?
Yeah,
Tom,
I hate to say it. He's the GOAT.
Brady's
He's the GOAT.
Greatest.
Some loyalty.
He's the GOAT.
I love that guy. All right, well, guys, thanks. We got to use some giveaways here.
Yeah, we do.
What are we getting? We getting a player's home version?
You're getting the home version. You can.
Do you remember quick cooking cremettes? Everybody used to get quick cooking cremettes, the pasta.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's a wine.
That's a great parting gift.
It is. He's right. Eric gets some cremettes.
All right. Well, speaking of winners, though, we have so Bob Crow's winning the Platypod, so we're giving away the Platypod.
Congratulations, Bob.
We've got Peter Goris is winning your iPhone photography book, and then we have Carl Greason winning the Boris FX Optics.
Did you give away my 7-point system book?
No, they did not.
Well, that's bad.
Yeah. We're going to keep that because it's so good we want to read it.
No, we have to give, we have more than this copy.
Yes. Well, I don't have we'll give it away next week.
Oh, look, Jack Rosnicki's on the list.
Oh, look at
Listen to that dramatic.
Jack Rosnicki just won the
Listen to that dramatic
7-point system book.
Eric, go back 3 or 4 people, pick somebody that
ask a question.
Well, I'll tell you what, Stuart's been asking a bunch of good questions.
Stuart,
so we'll give
you're
it to
getting
Stuart.
the book. We got to give the book away.
There
We
you
can't go, we'll just keep it. We said we're going to give it away, but not with an attorney in the studio.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, will you sign my iBook when I get it?
I would love to. All right. So, Ed, Jack, thank you. You guys are a national treasure, and what you're doing for photographers is really wonderful. And you guys are the best communicators. You really do. You make the story stick, and it really helps in so many ways. And we're honored to have you both here, not only on the show here today, but of course teaching these classes at Kelby One, which will help so many people. Eric.
Yeah.
You're just you. You're just regular. You look young without your beard. I don't know what to say. Look how young he looks. He's young and he's vibrant.
I don't know about that, but
tanned and rested. He's ready.
He is tan, rested, and ready.
Ready to go.
Thanks to all of our sponsors.
Ready to go and fringe.
Thanks to our crew here. Thanks to Mike switching in the booth. And we will catch you all next week. I believe next week is our blind photo critiques.
Yeah, blind photo critiques.
So keep an eye out on my social media on Facebook and Twitter. I'll be saying when it's time to submit your images. We'll be doing those next week. In the meantime, everybody stay safe.
And if we put your watermark on the images, we won't know that it's...
Yeah, don't forget to mask up. There goes mine. It's not doing very well. But I'm so far away from everybody right now. Eric's over there, Jack and Ed over there. We're all here, but we're super safe.
We got shots.
We all got shots. I got shots.
I got shots.
I'm all shotted up. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you guys next week right here on The Grid. Take care.